Today's episode is going to be another of those bits and pieces episodes where I'm just going to do a few things in a couple of the rooms. And I'm going to start in the main bedroom. So all of the furniture is made for this room, but as you can see, I've got to add a lot of accessories. But what I want to do first of all is change the bedspread on the bed and make some more pillows. When I made this bedspread, I didn't put any wadding in. I didn't want it to look too puffy, but actually every time I come into the room, I do think it looks a little bit flat. So I'm going to remake that and then make some pillows to match, as I usually make 3 pillows and I only made 2 that time. So I'll take the bed into the craft room and we'll get started. So I found out my fabrics. I'm going to stick with the plain sort of beige or taupe colour for the main colour of the top blanket. I'm going to use this lovely sort of fine check poly cotton for a couple of the pillows, and then I'm going to replace the floral, and this is the one that I printed myself and I made a copy of the wallpaper in the room, but obviously 2 florals together isn't going to go, so I'm going to get rid of that and get rid of those pillows and use this one instead. And the actual pattern on there is the same colour as that lovely beige or taupe colour of my plain cotton fabric there. So what I'm actually going to start by doing is removing everything and then just very, very carefully peeling away that top blanket, because as you know, I like to glue my bedding into place so it gets that more natural sort of flatter look. I'll take that off as well. I have started in this corner and it is coming away quite easily. And I'm just going to do it very, very slowly, as I don't want to stretch obviously the fabric that I want to keep beneath. And there. So I'll keep that and use the fabric for another project. And the only sort of glue line you can see on there is where I'll be re-gluing my new blanket. So I'm really pleased with that. I'll put those cushions to one side as well, or those pillows rather. Okay, so I'm going to get the new pieces cut and then I'll get the sewing machine out. Okay, so all of my fabric is now cut, and I just went for the 2 fabrics in the end. That small check darker fabric I was going to use for the pillows just looked a little bit too dark, so I'm just going for the 2 colours, the beige and the floral, and then one of each for my bedspread. I've set up my machine, so I've got my white cotton in the bobbin, and then I'll be using this pale cream as the second cotton. And because my machine can be a little bit temperamental, I always just like to have a practice run first of all with an old scrap of fabric, and I always use this bright yellow for that. Yep, so that's running nicely this morning, and that's always a really good idea because then you can check that the tension is set correctly and your stitches are the correct length. Okay, so all of my pieces are stitched, so I'm now ready to start adding the stuffing. And for the actual quilt, I'm not going to use the wadding that I usually use, but I'm going to use this 1mm foam. And I used this recently on a bed that I dressed for book 6, and it works really well. So it just gives the cover that nice sort of thick look without making it look too fat or puffy. And I don't like it to look too fat because then it can look a little bit out of scale. And I just find that this works really well. So this comes on a roll. I can't remember the name of it now, but I'll see if I can find a link and pop that in the description box below. And what I've done is just cut a piece that's just slightly narrower all the way round. It goes that way actually. So I've left a border of probably about 1.5 millimeters or 1/16 of an inch. And I'm now going to work that inside. So I usually sort of fold it like that. Find the opening. Just sort of reach in and make sure it's going right into the corners like that. So this will be the top of my cover, and then that will sort of fold over like that, and I'll just pop a bit of glue on there in a moment. But see that lovely sort of rounded, smooth look it gives it. So not too plump, but also it's not that really sort of flat look. So I'm going to glue up my seam on there, glue over the fold, and then glue that back onto the bed. And for my pillows, I'm going to use the little beads again, so the glass beads, which are these. And I've shown you these now a couple of times, but just to say, I really love using these. A lot of people say about seeds and things like that, and they do work as well. That's always what I used to use, but these are even tinier, and they really do sort of fill out the cushion and make it look nice and plump and heavy, which gives it that nice realistic look. And if you like to sort of shape your pillows or cushions, then you can do that with them as well. And there is completed bed Mark 2. I'm really pleased with that. I think it looks a lot more cosy, and I really love the look that that foam gives the bedspread. I like it with the extra pillows as well. Okay, so let's go and put this back into place. I'm trying to get out of the light there, but I'm really pleased with how that looks. So not a huge difference, but I know now when I come into the doll's house I'll be a lot more happy with that. And I think Ted and little Herbert look a lot more cosy there as well. So the other thing I wanted to show you was this little crocheted blanket, and this is just to be folded to sit on top of the wardrobe in the guest bedroom. And I made this using the number 80 cotton and a 0.5mm hook, or number 22 hook, and I actually did a chain space between every cluster. So if you followed my crochet tutorials before, you know that I usually just do 2 chain spaces at each corner, but not between the clusters. But this time I did, and that was just to make it a little bit bigger and nice and loose so that I'll be able to fold it. And I didn't actually measure this. I think it's about 4 inches square. Yeah, so 95mm or 3 3/4 inches square. So it's just really made to be like a little throw or a little cover. And what I'm actually going to do is fold that in half and then fold it into thirds. And then that will sit on top of the suitcase in there. So let's go and put that into place. Okay, so that's just going to sit on top of there like that. And then I might just make another little cushion to go on top of there, just sort of like some extra bedding, or I might even stitch a pillow to go up there, just to add a little bit more height into that area. But actually, this is another of the jobs that I want to do today. So if I show you the wardrobe there from the side, can you see how it looks as though it's just leaning forward slightly as it goes towards the top of the wardrobe? And I think that's because this sort of final wood strip here actually just goes up a tiny bit into the corner of the room. So what I want to do next is to sand those back feet just a little bit, just so that that will sit up and sit straight against the wall there. And I probably want to take about 1mm off of the back feet. So I've got here a 240 grade sandpaper, and I am actually just going to hang the back feet over the edge of it like that, and then go around in small circular motions. So I was counting there and I did 50 sort of rounds. So I'm now going to go and try this back into place and see if I need to do any more. And you know that I always advise that whenever you need to sand anything, always just do a bit at a time. Try the item into place, whether it's a drawer or a door or something like this, and then go again. But you don't want to take too much off in one go, as then obviously you'll have the problem in the opposite direction. Okay, so in the end I went back and did a further 3 lots of 50 sweeps. So that was 200 sands to get that to sit straight along there. Now obviously it's not going to go straight back to the wall because of the skirting board, but as you can see I've now got an even gap along the back there. And I really like that because I feel that it opens that area of the room out a little bit. I think with that leaning forwards, even though it was only a small amount, it was almost sort of blocking the dressing table and that wall behind, even sort of when I came around to this angle. So really pleased with that. And obviously you can't really tell that the back foot is a little bit shorter than the front. So if ever you have anything like that, do always give that a go. And don't worry about, you know, distorting your piece of furniture, because it now actually looks a lot straighter. So I'm going to pop these things back on top. So just finally heading back into the main bedroom again. So soft furnishings wise in this room, I want to make another round cushion to go on this end bench. So a crocheted round cushion, but I actually want to have a go at knitting a little throw, which I'll hang over this end arm. So you may remember from an earlier episode that I have already had a go at miniature knitting to make a little blanket, which again was going to go into the guest bedroom. For that I've been using this Appleton's 1-ply crewel wool, but I'm not getting on very well with it. One, because I'm not actually very practiced in miniature knitting, but also because I find that the needles actually push through this wool. So when I'm trying to sort of, you know, push the needle through the stitches, I'm going in between the wool like that. So I actually ended up accidentally pulling this off of the needle, so I haven't continued with it just because I'm not actually enjoying doing it. And I always say when you're doing something you need to actually enjoy it. So what I'm actually going to do is try using a different type of wool, and I found these in that messy sort of box of bits that I showed you in the last episode. Now I think I actually bought this as crochet cotton when I actually started doing miniature crochet, and used a rather thick cotton which made quite a large square. But this was how I began, so I began using a larger hook and a thicker cotton, and then sort of just worked my way down. So I've got these couple of balls here left, and both of these are actually perfect colours for the bedroom. I think I'm going to use the lighter one to begin with and make the little throw to go over the end of the bench. Now I'm not going to obviously do all of that in today's episode, but I just want to have a go with it. So I'm going to cast on and then just see how I get on with it and see if it's any sort of easier and more enjoyable to use than the crewel wool. Okay, so let's get started. So I'm pleased to report that I'm finding this much easier to use. So I started off there with 33 stitches, so I don't want a huge blanket, I just want it to be more like a runner, and I'll fold that in half and then lay it over the end of the bench. And I'm using what I think is called a stocking stitch, so 1 row of knit and then 1 row of purl, but do correct me if I'm wrong in that name. And it's just so much easier to actually get the needle through the stitch. And I know that's going to go wrong now I'm recording, but with the last wool, like I say, I'd just be really struggling to actually get it through the stitch. But with this, as you can see, it just goes through really smoothly. And I think as well, although I haven't sort of really done that much yet, I've probably only done about 4 rows, it looks a lot neater as well, so I can actually really see the definition of the stitches there. Whereas before with the crewel wool, it was all just sort of blending into one. Let me show you that close up, even though it has now come off the needles. But do you know what I mean? I just don't think they look as neat, and that's probably down to me rather than the actual wool. I'm sure some of you get on really well with this wool, but I don't think that looks as neat. And that's obviously where I was sort of struggling and pulling and splitting the wool as I was going along. So I'm really glad I found these balls of wool. So what I need to do now is actually to order some more, and I want to get some in the deep red for the living room, and also in the teal green, and probably a nice sort of pale grey as well for the guest bedroom. But like I said, I do really enjoy knitting in full size, and I thought I would in miniature as well. So I'm really glad now that I can actually do this and enjoy it and sit and do it as I'm watching TV or listening to music or something, and that it isn't sort of more of a tedious task. And the other thing I was going to say, so the little sort of almost 4-inch square crocheted blanket that I made did take quite a while, so probably overall probably took, I don't know, maybe 5 hours or something. Again, I did it whilst watching TV, so I didn't mind. But one thing I never mind is spending a lot of time on something that is only going to be folded on the top of a wardrobe. And that goes for all of the miniatures I make. I remember I made quite a detailed little bag to go in the craft room, in the attic craft room in the doll's house. And I popped it underneath a shelf, and one lady had said you should have it on display because it took you so long. But I always think that things like that are what really make a scene. You know, even just something sort of tucked away and hidden away, if it's got that detail in it, people are really going to notice. So I never mind spending a lot of time on things that aren't going to be sort of fully on display. I hope you know what I mean by that. Comment below as well if that's something you don't mind doing, or whether if you're going to sort of have it folded or hidden, you wouldn't spend as much time on it. Let me know how you work. But I actually, you know, I really enjoy that, get quite a kick out of spending a lot of time putting a lot of detail into something that isn't like a main object in the room. Okay, so I'm going to have to stop doing this now because I've got other things to get on with, but I really am enjoying it. So I'll update you on the progress of this in the next episode. Hopefully I'll have it finished. But I've got quite a few other projects that I'm working on of an evening. So I'm working on a rug for the 1940s doll's house living room. And I'm also trying to make a few more crochet blankets to sell in my Etsy shop. And the grey, I was working on the grey crochet blanket as well. I'm sure I thought there was something else, but obviously I've finished that now. So that will be replaced with this one. Oh yes, and also a little crochet blanket for the 1940s house, which will go on the bed of the main bedroom. Okay, so that's it for today. A slightly shorter video, but I hope you enjoyed it nonetheless. Now is the time that I ask you to please hit the subscribe button if you haven't done so already, and please just go and click like on this video. And if you're watching on the TV, you just need to go upwards and across a little bit and hit the thumbs up button. So I hope you don't mind these sort of slightly bitty episodes where I'm moving from one room to another and just doing odd little jobs. I may do another one of these in the next episode, or I might go back to the guest bedroom and finish off in there. There are a few accessories to make now, and obviously the rug, which will take a little bit longer, but I can always start it in one of the episodes. I'm actually using my frame at the moment for another rug, so I'll have to wait until that one is done, and that's the one I spoke about earlier for the 1940s doll's house living room. But I will be making rugs for all of the rooms. Also curtains, which is something we haven't done in there yet, or I haven't done in there yet. And another thing I was thinking about the other day as well as light switches, is something that I've done in the 1940s doll's house and I really love, and that's plug sockets. So I want to put some plug sockets wherever there's a lamp or something that would obviously plug in. So that's something else we'll have a look at as well. And all of those wonderful little details that make this hobby just so fantastic. So again, I really hope you've enjoyed today's episode. I'm going to let you go and get on with your day now. Please don't forget to hit the like button, and if you're not already a subscriber, then please go and subscribe. And I will see you again soon. Take care. Bye.